Hello. I just wanted to offer a brief update and kind of a summary of what had happened between Egypt and Israel, as well as a little bit of additional information on the last 24 hours, which has been very challenging for Israel. So, what we understand at this point is that sometime last night or very early this morning, Monday morning, Israeli time, Israel bombed a meeting between three, maybe four Hamas officials. And this meeting was taking place adjacent to a civilian encampment, a refugee camp. What happened was the Israelis likely used excessive force and bombed it. And thus, the explosions generated a fire and burned several people. Up to 45 people were burned in the explosion and resulting fire. What it appears is that Egyptian troops who were located away from this incident at the Rafah crossing were aware of it. They may have seen it or quickly been apprised of it, and then fired on Israeli troops who were nearby. The Israeli troops responded. Apparently, this was not warning shots, as was earlier reported, but with directed fire. And this resulted in the death of one Egyptian soldier that we are aware of at this time. Very important situation. We know that the Israelis have talked to the Egyptians and are working on de escalation. I continue to look at this as a very serious situation. Now, Israel and Egypt have been at peace since 1977, 1978. And so the peace between the two countries is as old as I am. So this is not a fragile peace. This is not something that I believe is instantly going to break and result in a clash. But Egypt has been making a lot of statements that they have opposed the Rafah border operation, and they have been making a lot of statements warning Israel that they would get involved in the situation. So it is possible that even though they are going through a conflict mitigation period right now, there is a possibility that Egypt could start getting more involved in uh, defending the Palestinian people, the Gazans, in this area, and this could lead to further confrontations. I don't want to overhype that at this point. I want to keep, again, a sense of reserve and calm that for right now, it appears that Egypt is not going to respond. And again, they have a long term relationship, and that long term relationship is beneficial for Egypt as well as for Israel. So they're not going to ditch this relationship over a situation. However, the possibility exists that this could be a part of a trend which leads towards further tensions and an outbreak of violence. No indications of that right now. It could. The Middle East is one of those very unique regions in the world where, in a lot of ways, you can almost count it off by the beats, by the historical beats. And then in other situations, it just snaps into a totally different direction, like what we saw with Iran and Israel back in April. So, as I've always said, I never say never when it comes to the Middle East. However, I just don't want to inflame the situation or get everybody anxious over something that does not appear to be imminent. The other thing is that 19 men, Palestinian men, crossed over the security barrier in the West Bank. They jumped, well, didn't jump over it, but they climbed over the barrier and they were intercepted. And fortunately, these men were not bearing arms. They were actually looking for work. There were 19 of them. But it does raise some significant concerns, especially for Israelis. They have watched as Hamas went over the wall there in Gaza. Uh, there were some reports of people hearing what they thought was work being undertaken underneath the security barrier, that there was a possibility of tunneling. Uh, this was investigated, but found not to be the case. But to see that 19 unarmed men could climb over the security barrier and actually make it over the top before they were intercepted definitely raises some security concerns for the Israelis. So, yet again, we see another 24-hour period in which Israel is confronted with quite a lot of situations. And they had seen um, missiles launched from Lebanon, another uh, large number of missiles launched from there. And we also saw a number of missiles launched from the northern Gaza Strip, where Israel had previously cleared things out. So there's a very dynamic, very fluid situation going on there. I feel like sometimes I'm in Groundhog's Day when I say that all the time. And sometimes, you just can't get away from that. But important situations, the Rafah situation, the Rafah confrontation between Egypt and Israel is not a small matter. It is definitely important. It is something that should be paid attention to. Israel has come into real conflict with its neighbors, with Lebanon, with Syria, with Iran, now with Egypt. Uh, the war is leaking out on into the neighboring countries, and there's the risk of inflaming the situation further, and avoidably. A lot of this has been avoidable and could have been redirected or achieved through different means. And so Israel continues to run significant risk. And that's the nature of the neighborhood in which it finds itself in. It has to fight a little bit smarter and a little bit cleaner than some of the other armies in the region and in the world, simply because of the capacity for them to be quickly overwhelmed. One thing that Israel does not need is another front in this war. It doesn't need to have to worry about Egypt becoming a threat. And if that were to happen, it would have to shift a lot of strong resources, most likely away from Lebanon and to the south. Egypt might even then push through the southern border of Gaza, enter in, and then try to flank the Israeli forces. Uh, so there are a lot of different scenarios that could happen, but again, we will have to see just how far Sisi is going to want to press the situation. I hope that this has been a useful update and summary of the situation, a little bit enlightening. Put your comments or questions below, and I'll be happy to respond to them. Thank you very much.